Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about a really critical piece of AI infrastructure that's kind of changing everything behind the scenes. It's called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. So let's just dive right in and figure out what it is, why it's such a big deal, and maybe just as importantly, when you might want to think twice before using it.
To really get what MCP is all about, you just have to look at this quote. Ars Technica called it the USB-C for AI. And honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. It's this universal standard that lets all these different AI models and tools just plug into each other seamlessly, even if they're made by companies that are fierce competitors. It's a game changer. So why did we even need something like this? Well, before MCP, we were stuck in what developers called the N times M integration nightmare. Just imagine you have, say, 10 different AI models. That's your N. And maybe 50 different tools or databases. That's your M. To get them to talk to each other, you literally had to build a custom one-off connector for every single pair. It was a total mess, inefficient, super expensive, and just a massive bottleneck for any kind of progress. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into that integration nightmare. Then we'll see how MCP steps in as this universal translator. After that, we'll get into the practical stuff, the playbook for when you should use it. We'll also do a reality check on the costs and the alternatives out there. And finally, we'll zoom out and look at the future of agentic AI that MCP is helping to unlock.
Here's the thing about these large language models. They're brilliant, but for a long time, they were completely trapped. Their knowledge is basically frozen in time, stuck at the moment their training ended. They were totally isolated from real-world, real-time data and systems. Without a way to connect, they were kind of like these super powerful brains just sitting in a jar, unable to actually do anything.
And this is exactly where MCP comes in. It's the elegant solution to that brain-in-a-jar problem. It's the universal translator that finally gives these AI systems a standardized, open-source language to communicate with the entire outside world. At its core, the definition is actually pretty simple. MCP is an open standard, first cooked up by Anthropic, and its whole job is to create one single, consistent way for any AI to connect with any external tool. And this is key. It's not a model and it's not a framework, it's a protocol. Just like HTTP is the protocol for how we all use the web.
And listen to this, the adoption has been insanely fast. Anthropic introduces it in late 2024, and just a few months later, boom, OpenAI officially adopts it. By the end of 2025, Google is already offering managed MCP servers. It all basically set the stage for 2026 to be the year it really took off in the enterprise. So yeah, this isn't some niche idea, it's quickly become the industry standard.
Okay, so how does it actually work? This analogy is just brilliant for explaining it. So, you, the user, ask the CEO for something. The CEO is our LLM. Now, the CEO isn't going to do all the grunt work itself, right? It delegates to an operations manager. That's the MCP client. The ops manager then talks to a bunch of approved vendors. Those are the MCP servers who go out, do the actual work, and then report back with the results. Simple and clean.
All right, so we get what it is. Now for the really important part, the playbook. Let's look at how this actually builds value, especially for big organizations. When should you really be using MCP?
And let's get right into the numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. Early companies that jumped on this are reporting a staggering 30% reduction in development overhead. Just think about that for a second. You build a tool once as an MCP server, and suddenly any AI model in your entire organization can use it. That is a massive, massive efficiency gain.
And it's not just about saving time for developers. The impact on day-to-day operations is even bigger. By giving AI agents reliable, standardized access to their tools, businesses saw task completion get faster by 50 to 75%. That's just a huge acceleration in actually getting value out of your AI.
And what's cool is that this isn't just a win for one team. Everyone gets something out of it. For IT and engineering, it means a much simpler architecture and less maintenance. For your security and compliance folks, you get a single point of governance. For the business teams, it means faster automation. And for the execs, we're talking lower costs and no more vendor lock-in, because MCP lets you use whatever AI model you want.
So let's be super clear. When is MCP the absolute right move? Well, it really shines in a few key scenarios. It's perfect for enterprise-scale systems that need different parts to talk to each other. It's a must-have for regulated industries like healthcare or finance that need auditable, governed AI. If you're building reusable tools for your whole company, or if you want the freedom to swap out AI models without rebuilding everything, then MCP is your answer.
But, of course, No technology is a silver bullet, right? So now it's time for a little reality check. We need to talk about the real-world costs, the challenges you're going to face, and some of the other important alternatives you should know about. Which brings us to this very direct question. Is MCP times always the right choice? And the short answer? Nope, absolutely not. It solves a specific, incredibly important problem, but it definitely comes with its own set of trade-offs. You know, when you actually talk to the engineers building with this stuff, you hear about the real-world headaches. Things like these killer 8 to 12 second latency spikes when a server has to cold start that can just ruin an interactive experience. You hear about these subtle, hard-to-find bugs from transport mismatches. The absolute universal headache of getting authentication and permissions right, and the fact that standard load balancers can break MCP sessions. None of these are deal breakers for sure, but they are very real engineering challenges you have to solve.
Okay, this is super important. You have to know which tool to use for which job. MCP is not a replacement for something like LangChain. LangChain is a framework you use to build the actual logic of your AI agent, how it thinks. MCP is the protocol that lets that agent use its tools. And that's totally different from RAG, which is an architectural pattern for pulling in documents to give an AI more context. They all work together, but they each solve a different piece of this giant puzzle.
So where is this all going? What's the big picture? Well, by solving that core connection problem, MCP has basically unlocked the door to the next massive era of AI, the age of truly autonomous agentic systems.
And this is the fundamental shift, right? For years, the main challenge was just getting our AI models hooked up to the data and tools they needed to be useful. Now that MCP is solving that, the new and frankly much harder challenge is governance. How do we manage, secure, and audit all these incredibly powerful new capabilities we're unleashing?
And that really leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. MCP is providing the universal plug. It's enabling this future where AI agents can act as a real digital workforce. But as these agents get more autonomous and more powerful, the most important question we have to answer isn't about technology anymore. It's about who writes the rules.